Well, thanks for tuning in to World of Railways. I'm joined with Ollie Simons, and Ollie, you've got a YouTube channel that you run. You're also involved with the heritage railway scene, which is primarily what we're going to talk about now. But I can't help but notice you've also got some modelling going on behind you, and you just decided that you're going to join the railways. So tell us all about how this started, please.
So I've been interested in railways for as long as I can remember. It all started with my granddad took me down to a place called Beaconscott Model Village. I'm not sure, but people have heard of it. But it's a small model village. It's like a big garden with a model village in it, and it has trains running around. And I could be there for hours and hours and hours. And I think that's where it all first started. So going from the smallest gauge, my first layout my granddad built me was N gauge, and then obviously over time as I got older, that grew to double O gauge. I then did a fair amount of 5-inch gauge stuff, which is the ride on railway sort of size stuff, and a lot of that is scale railway as well. So you've got scale down wagons. It's not just sort of taking people for rides. It's the modelling side of that as well. But mainly, if people follow my channel, is the standard gauge stuff. I have a brake van, 22-ton tube wagon, a Great Eastern Railway box van, and most recently I've acquired a Ruston and Hornsby 88DS.
Now,
So as
this
you
this
can,
this sounds like a slippery slope to me. So,
it
so
is, it
what got
is.
you involved with the heritage railway scene then?
So there's a chap called Charles I went to college with. I did an apprenticeship with a company on the underground, and at the college I actually met this guy. Neither of us knew that we were both interested in railways. But later on, a couple of years down the line, he messaged me and said, "I think I've just seen your videos on YouTube." We get talking. Anyway, next thing you know, I'm down there down the railway having a look at the loco he has. And then a couple of weeks after that, I'm talking to the chairman about taking on a project there, because one thing for me is I'd like to do a project, but I also like to document it. So then if other people think this is something they'd like to do, I very much like to promote the idea that this is something that anyone can get involved with.
Hmm.
And it ended up being that I purchased a 20-ton British Rail brake van. And that's the kind of the sort of main subject of my YouTube channel at the moment, is restoring that.
Now, just let me pause you there for a second. So you've bought this 20-ton brake van. Why? What was the main catalyst that made you think, I know I need a brake van in my life? Because many others would think, oh, I quite fancy a locomotive, or I quite fancy something that I could ride along in, but a brake van. So what's the long-term goal with this?
Yeah, when you say it like that, it does. I do kind of think in my head, like, what on earth was I thinking? Because as we were speaking about before we started recording, there's a lot has gone into it already. Way more work than I ever thought it would be, and I think it's definitely important for people to realize that if they are taking this, isn't a five minute job. It's not a 60-second makeover, 60-minute makeover. There's a lot that goes into um, sorting one of these wagons out. But I very much wanted I've freight especially. I'm definitely freight obsessed. I've never really been interested in carriages or anything like that. Most of my double O gauge collection is freight rolling stock, and I think if you think of freight, I think the first thing that anyone thinks of, especially heritage railways, is brake vans. I think brake vans. Every heritage railway wants a brake van, and they don't make them anymore, so they're slowly becoming hard to come by. So they've got another BR 20-ton brake van, and there's this one, which the plan is in the long term to restore it to run in a freight set, but also to do things like brake van rides. That's popular at a lot of railways, and just generally like sort of mix it in their summer running set, because they run a brake van and a tube wagon. So the tube wagon is like an open. It's just a sort of a different experience to sitting in a carriage, but it's a
Yeah.
tube wagon with seats in, and then there's a brake van at the end. And putting that into service means that they can take the other brake van out and give it some attention that it obviously hasn't had the time to receive. But my brake van, oh sorry, I was going to say my brake van was last running at Old Oak Common Depot on mineral trains. So the livery it's going back into is the last one it carried while out on the main line, which is the Dutch engineers grey with the yellow stripe across the top.
Has it required more work than you initially expected then? Any surprises?
I think more work than I expected is definitely an understatement. I think the initial "I'm getting a brake van, this is so exciting" type honeymoon phase of the project was great, but then, as you say, there just starting to dig. I think the worst thing for me that I don't think I realised, like when I was initially sort of come putting the project to the steps of things I needed to do in my head, the woodwork, a lot of internal woodwork stuff between the cladding, the out exterior cladding and the interior cladding. There's a lot of stuff like the 16-foot horizontal beams both needed replacing, and I think that was by far the most expensive part so far of the project. But it's something that when I first started on it, I didn't even think about. But I thought, oh yeah, just cover that up with a bit of paint. But no, it was definitely if I want this to last more than 5 minutes, I've got to do it properly. So it's involved a lot of stripping stuff back. It's definitely been more taking stuff off than stuff going back on at the moment. But I suppose that's a whole part of the process of getting it back to a workable project and then getting it back to how it should be. But yeah, it's definitely been more of a challenge than I thought it'd be. But it's been a good learning curve as well, because I've started to learn woodworking skills and sort of just get tips of other people and speak to other groups who do similar things. And it's been great for the sort of practical side of things.
Yeah. How did you get to where you are then in the association? I mean, how many years has it taken to sort of to then acquire a brake van? Did you just join the railway when you purchased this, or has this been something that you've discovered as you found new interests at the railway when you've been volunteering?
So this is the first ever Heritage Railway that I've actually volunteered at. I did volunteer at some smaller scale, the 5-inch gauge stuff, back when I used to live in West London, and I used to help out there. But I never ever sort of found the right heritage. I know that it probably don't sound right, but the right environment that I want to be in heritage wise, because obviously with Heritage Railways, there's lots of groups and lots of individual projects and things that people get on with at Heritage Railways. But the Colne Valley for me was definitely the most welcoming and open, because I said to the chairman, I said, look, this is what I do on YouTube. This is the sort of project I'd like to do. Is this something that can be done here? And then we had a few conversations, had a look at a couple of possible projects. But then when the brake van, originally I wanted a box van. That was the initial I wanted to do, but I just I couldn't say no to a brake van, because obviously you can actually ride in it. So it's like there's definitely an end goal there for use on the railway. So it was kind of I couldn't really say no to this opportunity.
Mm. Do you think it requires, though, a certain mindset to be dedicated to restoring a project like that from start to finish? I mean, you're out in the elements pretty much all year round if you want to really crack on with this, aren't you? What would you say to somebody thinking about getting involved with restoration of vehicles on a heritage railway? What sort of things do they need to think about?
I'd say, as you just mentioned there, I think the most important thing is time. These things don't, as I originally thought, you know what, paint, say a coat of paint, it'll be good to go. But as I've dug deeper, some of the projects, like there's some work that I've outsourced to other railways. The guys at the Mid Norfolk Railway who work on restoring a DMU over there, they've actually helped me with some metal work on the brake van. So there's lots of individual projects and things, and it's kind of, don't overload yourself with the amount of work that you think. Like I've just, rather than try and worry about everything, I'm just doing little bits at a time. But it's definitely, you've got to put time aside for it, otherwise it will just never get done. But I try and kind of do one day a weekend, so at least get down there once, if not once or twice a week, depending on my work shift patterns, but a minimum once a week. Otherwise, yeah, you just won't have the time to get things done, because even something as simple as sanding back a bit of metal, priming it and painting it, that could take a day. So it's not a 5-minute job. And as you say, with the elements, if it starts raining, that puts all those plans to the side. So you've got to have other things that you can do. You just got to make sure you've got stuff to do, no matter what the elements throw at you, while you're down there, making the most of every minute you've got the time there. Yeah, there's lots of little things that you kind of start to get to know. I said that all comes with experience. As I said, buying the 20-ton brake van, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but now I'd say I know the brake van pretty well. So
You know, inside out.
yeah, it's literally,
So
yeah,
how
yeah.
does somebody become involved with the Colne Valley Railway as you've become?
Now more than ever, railways are looking for volunteers, because they've lost a fair few to COVID, or people have just gone their separate ways and not got back into it since the whole pandemic. But for the Colne Valley, we've had a few members join recently, which is great, and it's very much turn up on the day. You know, decide what you want to get involved with. There's a whole variety of stuff. You know, we've got the P-way, you've got the estates, whether you want to work on the building side of things. We've got carriage and wagon. I mean, I'm wagons, and then we've got a guy who is sort of in charge of the carriages. You've got the diesel group. So you've got people who are just working specifically on diesel. So it really depends what the person themselves wants to work on, but there is definitely a bit of everything. We've even got at the railway, we've got a model railway as well, like a 00 gauge one and a 7 1/4 one. So there really is something for everyone there as well if they want to get involved. But always opportunities, and there's plenty, as you can imagine, plenty of things to do on Heritage Railway, so they wouldn't be short of tasks.
Brilliant. Well, Ollie, thank you very much for your time. I can see you've got a project that's on the go in the background there. For our viewers, I think we've only got about 2 minutes left in this meeting, so I have to make this quick. But just tell us a little bit about this, because I would like to see this at our Alexandra Palace show. What is it you're building?
I'm currently building a recreation or an exact replica of County School Station, which is on the Mid Norfolk Railway, as it was late 1950s, early 1960s. So it's mainly the freight sector side of stuff that it was used for, but it's also where I spent 10 years going on holiday every year, staying in the actual railway cottages. And there is actually on my YouTube channel, I've just put a tour a few months ago, a tour of the whole exhibition layout if people want to see that and get a bit more understanding as to what the work that's going on with that. But if not, there's always the standard gauge stuff as well to have a look at.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ollie, for your time. And if anybody is watching this and would like to see some of Ollie's content, visit his channel on YouTube, Wardle Road. Thanks, Ollie.
Cheers. Thank you.